Hello, welcome to Artists in Residences, the Westport Library's virtual artist series. I'm Carol Erger-Fass, exhibit curator at the library. I'm so honored to be introducing Leonard Everett Fisher. An artist from the time he was a toddler, Leonard started painting at age 16, and he's painted and sketched his entire life, including during his time serving in World War II. And at the age of 96, he shows no signs of slowing down. Leonard's career as a painter, illustrator, and designer has spanned nearly 70 years, and he's received countless awards, including the Pulitzer Art Prize. His work is also in the collection of major universities and museums all across the country. He's written and illustrated over 260 children's books, and in the process has created over 700 paintings and 6,000 scratchboards. From the graphic images in his book boxes to the incredibly complex paintings in his biographies of Marie Curie, Gutenberg, and Gandhi, Leonard has created an entire genre of children's book illustration. I just want to share with you one of those books, Casey at the Bat, which was named the best children's book of the year in 1964 by the New York Times. My great-uncle Ben bought the book back then, and even though he had no kids, he bought it specifically because of the fantastic illustrations. It's been in our family ever since. But whatever the medium, Leonard's use of form, shape, line, and color conveys a very personal vision and deep sense of humanity that make each of his books and his paintings uniquely his. His images make you look and remember. Leonard's connection to the library is more than just being an author. In addition to having been a past board president and head of the art committee, along with Howard Muntz, he was responsible for obtaining the library's impressive black and white works on paper collection, which you can see hanging on the walls in the library the next time you visit. Now, let's join the conversation with Miggs Burroughs and Leonard Everett Fisher.
Well, thanks, Carol. This is a special pleasure to talk to Leonard Everett Fisher, who's, I don't know, you've been called the Dean of Artists in Westport, and you're just have such an incredible career and all different styles and media. So we'll start to explore that. But why don't you give us a little, I don't know, kind of just talk about where you are now, about your studio and what you're doing.
Okay. Well, we're in my studio. I'm in the far wall of the studio. I did have a much larger studio in Norwalk for many years. And then I left there and I did have this smaller studio at home, and it's attached to my house. And this is where I work. I call it the factory. It's part office. It's part easel. As you can see behind me, this is a large painting, which is a fairly recent painting. And I've been painting this jetty for years. It doesn't exist anymore because of climate change.
Is it here in Westport?
No, it was in a place called Seagate in Brooklyn, New York, which is a gated community. And we lived on Norton's Point next to a lighthouse. There's a painting. When I did the first painting I ever did was of this lighthouse. I was 16 years old, and it doesn't even exist. The lighthouse is still there, but that house and the fog bell that is in that painting no longer exists. The beach has been wiped out, the jetty is gone, and the tide has risen. And this has been going on for years. So people who deny, climate change, here's an example.
Right.
Of something. We lived next door to that house in that painting.
Now you said that's a recent painting. Does that mean that was done?
Not a recent painting. The one behind me is a recent painting.
But how recent? Like during lockdown, or where this COVID?
I think that painting was about 2018 or 2019.
Okay, so it wasn't. I'm just curious, and people always ask artists, are you busy during this lockdown, or are you more busy or less busy? Motivated, not
I'm busier.
Yeah.
I'm painting in my head. It's very difficult to try to create anything in this lockdown.
Yeah.
and the quarantine. There's so much distraction about all of this that I can't really be rational in it. And so I've been doing some writing about my career and so forth, just to keep my mind going. I think that this lockdown is not going to end so quickly, and we're still in it. Here it is, August 25th, and we've been locked down since March.
Yeah. No, it's
In any case, as soon as this is over, there'll be more paintings.
good. Well, we're anxious to wait. Actually, let me put up, since you can't roam around in there so easily, I'm going to share my screen. Yeah. Okay. So you want to this is your working space, basically?
Yeah, this is the office part,
Mm-hmm.
and also the drafting table where I do a lot of drawing on that drafting table. There's a 14-foot ceiling in this studio, and the window here runs about 20 feet and 14 feet up. So I get a lot of light in here.
This is another
I
view.
also have a wood-burning stove.
Oh, yeah, we
can.
Yeah, we can see the pipe right over, in the corner there. We can see the
Yeah.
pipe coming. It looks like it's coming out of the chair, but that's.
I have an attic above the workspace, which is the storage area. But I'm not allowed to climb this ladder unless my wife is at the bottom of it to catch me if I fall down.
Oh, good for her. Yeah, that's it.
But the work keeps piling up. It's all up against the window here. So much is gone anyway. This particular painting that you see on the wall is a triptych. There's three.
Oh yeah, is that this one? I think that's this picture, right?
Yeah.
And what is that? Was that an illustration or just a painting?
No,
what was the idea behind that?
Well, I'll tell you how that happened. We were in Paris some years ago, and there was a collection of schoolgirls that were marching through there on a tour in the Rodin Museum. And one of those girls looked like that kid on the left here that you see on the left.
Yeah.
And so I made a sketch of her in my mind. I didn't have a sketchbook with me at the time. So I remembered that I sort of photographed them in my mind. And when I came home, I decided to paint that as a triptych. So, the three girls from this tour group in the Rodin Museum.
That's great. There's something so compelling or engaging, when you see somebody from behind painted or depicted, because you don't know what they look like, but you're kind of, they're looking at the clouds and in the sky, and it really puts you in the picture. It's really.
Well, that's what I tried to do.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
It's really symbolic realism. It's romantic symbolic realism. And it doesn't go very far these days because most of the contemporary art that you see, easel work is political or so abstract that it is personal. These are not that personal.
Yeah, but
I tried to get the audience into the pictures.
Well, you do. You're immersed in it. I'm immersed in it. And the other, I love the use of color. I mean, the middle one is wearing a purple hat. The person on the right is sort of wearing a reddish purplish bag. The blue, she's wearing a blue hat. The one in the middle is wearing a blue shirt. I mean, there's a beautiful color. There's a little purple, and the guy, I keep saying guy, the person on the left has a little purple thing in their backpack. I mean, the colors are so pleasing.
Well, it's a fairly large painting. These figures are larger than life size.
Are they? Okay.
The painting is almost 10 feet wide.
Oh, amazing. So here's the picture that's behind you when we were just talking to you in your studio.
Yeah, so this is the last picture I have done so far of the jetty. And you have these two people looking out from Norton's Point. They're looking west, and the sun always set in the west. And in front of them is the Atlantic Ocean, and they're looking out there in a hopeful way. hoping that something will go right in this world.
Yeah, well, that's a lot.
Because that jetty doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, you're saying it's just covered, the climate has definitely devoured it, right?
Yeah. But usually I paint the rocks all green and full of moss and everything. But this time I started to mess around with the color of the rocks.
Yeah, and the sky, I mean, people, is this, I don't know, it's not surrealism, but what would you call the use of color? It's not realistic. I mean,
It's symbolic. It's symbolic realism.
Symbolic realism, okay. Or hyper, yeah, no, it's great. I mean,
and I try not to show their faces
yeah.
Too much. They represent everybody, all kinds.
Yeah, no, it's right. It's a very universal type thing, and they're all looking somewhere, and we're all wondering what are they looking at, and even the seagulls looking that way. So
Yeah.
we all want to go.
If you look at that, the design of this thing, the seagulls are circling around on the right and coming back into the figures. You're going around all the time.
That's yeah, and I love the way you render clouds. I mean, so, anyway. And we'll go to another piece now, which I believe you did last year. Okay, I'm just kidding.
Well, I have to tell you about this. I was, the first studio I ever had was in a front hall closet. I had destroyed a watercolor that my father had painted. I was 2 years old. It was 1926. It was the year that Monet died.
Oh.
So I was going to take over from Monet.
Sure.
And my father was a ship designer, and we lived on the water.
Really?
And we used to summer first in Seagate before we ever moved there permanently. And the things that I painted and drew all the time were things dealing with either the military. You see the kind of soldier in there, the little bit of, or deep sea divers. I was able to sign my own name at the age of 4.
With it,
I was already reading by the time I got to first grade. That's because my mother read the Compton's Encyclopedia to me every night in all the articles in alphabetical order, 26 volumes.
Oh my God! I've only heard of one other.
So that I'd be ready for first grade.
That's
so
amazing.
You were ready for. Yeah, when I got to first grade, I knew all about the sinking of the Lusitania, and and tropical birds in Panama. I had no idea what I was talking about. But the rest of the class was resting and napping, but I was making speeches.
That's amazing. Well, that's an interesting, I'm curious, how much do you think is kind of knowledge and can you be a good artist and really not be aware and not, you could look at something, I could look at a vase full of flowers and try to paint it, but does the knowledge you had, the education, how does that enhance your artistry?
That's a good question, Miggs. I'm not really sure about that. Sometimes I think too much knowledge insofar as creating pictorial images might be confusing, might get in the way.
Oh, okay, right.
I think that observation is extremely important. And this came home to me many years later when I had a fellowship from Yale and they sent me to Europe. And the faculty there at Yale said, don't bring a paint box with you. Just look. Just look at the work. Look at the art. Absorb what happened before you.
Interesting.
And so that when you come back, you would have a better knowledge of your craft than if you sat at a museum and copied a painting.
Yeah, no, that's a great.
So when I was in Europe for about 5 months or 6 months. And I kept a diary, and I kept some sketches in that diary, but that's about the size of it. I spent most of my time looking and trying to remember what I saw in terms of craft.
Yeah, there was a quote, I think maybe I don't know, you gave an audio thing and you called yourself a doodler or something. Was that, I mean.
Well, I'm a 4th generation. My great-grandfather was a sign painter in Königsberg, Germany. My grandfather earned his way to the United States with a couple of kids by drawing charcoal portraits in bars along the Baltic. I still have the little knife that he sharpened the charcoal with.
Oh, wow.
And my father is all he ever wanted to be was an artist. He ended up designing ships.
Hmm.
My father was one of the contributing designers to the USS Arizona.
Oh, from Pearl
also,
Harbor. Yeah.
And also submarines, the first even keel diving submarines in Bridgeport, Connecticut,
Okay.
at the Simon Lake Boatyard.
Amazing.
And so he could not separate in his mind the drafting of ships and the engineering of making a floating ship and painting a picture.
Hmm.
He was all mixed up about that. That's why I tried to straighten him out when I was 2 years old.
Well, you'd read the encyclopedia. You could have
Right.
the
So they put me in
authority.
the front hall closet with no paint, only crayons and pencils. I didn't paint anything till I was 16.
How old were you when you did this piece? So was this when you were
Yeah.
16 when you did this piece?
Yes, this was painted in 1940.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Yeah, that fog bell there was the sound of doom.
Whoa.
And every time the fog rolled in, that thing went off. And this lighthouse sent a beam about every 20 seconds into our living room. So the living room, it was like a scene out of Dante's Hell in that living room.
Oh my
Every
God.
time that red light went around.
We've got a lot. I'm sorry.
Pardon?
No, I'm saying we have there's a lot of work to show. So at the risk of interrupting you, I'd like to keep showing a lot more work here.
Yeah. Well, this one.
Yeah.
This is interesting. I'll show you this. I just hold this up for a second. It was a question of whether I'd be a baseball player or an artist. I was 6 years old as a baseball player.
Wow, look at that.
This is when I was 9 years old. So there's a 3-year difference here. The reason I didn't become a baseball player is because I almost lost my right eye in a game.
Oh, with a ball hit you in the eye?
But that came much later when I was 17.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, this is a letter. And in this letter, which was written on November 18, 1943, my father says, and I was on my way overseas as a soldier. He said, God sparing, if you can't advance in the army as a soldier, you may get ahead as an artist. And it's bon voyage, good luck and lots of love, Dad. And so that picture that you just showed, which is in the New Britain Museum drawing collection, was of a train that we took from Casablanca. I landed in Casablanca, and we went east to Oran, and this was the 40 and 8s, 40 men or 8 horses from World War I. Those railroad cars dated back to 1914. And it was a 4-night, 4-day trip. And I drew on that. This is one of the drawings, and I was 19 years old at the time when I drew this.
So those hammocks, you're all jammed into a thing. Well, let me keep moving.
I was in this hammock.
Yeah, you're right.
This is a different kind of drawing that's done as a study for a possible painting a part of a painting that I was doing, but I never completed it. This will be acquired by the Yale Art Gallery.
Oh,
shortly. They're going to have a collection of my drawings up there.
Oh my God, it's so intense. I mean, the eye. I mean, obviously the focus is totally on that eyeball, and then the angle of the nose or snout or whatever you call it, and the angle of the horn, it just leads you right to the eyeball. It's great. Whoops.
I drew in a way that I didn't want anybody to forget what was on that piece of paper.
Yeah, they're, and that's exactly it. They're indelible images, I guess would be the word. So I'm going to skip ahead. We're going rapidly here, but this is a postage stamp you did.
Yes, I did 10 U.S. postage stamps. Thanks to Stephen DeHanis, who was the chairperson. You did one also.
I did one, thanks to Stephen. Yeah, mine was an 8-cent stamp, so it was in 1972.
Yeah.
I only did
Well,
one.
this was an 8-cent stamp to begin with, and the
Oh,
eight
was it?
cents was on the other side.
Oh, really?
And when the stamp came out, they had raised the price, and they moved it, the price over to the left-hand side.
Well, maybe it's because it was you. They figured it was worth 2 cents more because you did it.
Yeah,
Yeah, this,
Yeah.
well, this is in the graphic design department, which you also excel in, which is really great.
This was done as a poster
Hmm.
for the University of Connecticut for a book fair.
Very nice. And this one really, again, there's an eyeball. There's this focus on
That's
it.
like the unicorn, you know,
Yeah, this is the unit.
Cyclops. This is the book that is the story of the Cyclops,
Hmm.
which I wrote and illustrated. And this is
Sure.
I think, from the jacket of the book. These are paintings. These are acrylic paintings.
Mm.
I did about 700 of these paintings over a period of, I don't know how many years,
700.
30 years of doing picture books.
I mean, I don't, I tried painting, but obviously no good at it. But I would think something like this would take a year. I mean, it's just so, anyway, it's great. And then the intensity, the mouth, the eyeball, everything is, and,
Well,
again,
he looks more like he's singing, like Pavarotti.
yeah. But obviously your design, all your work has such a really powerful sense of design, which I think, some painters lack. They may be good technicians, but they don't have that sense of composition that makes you, that leads your eye where you want it to go. I mean, you make the viewer look where you want them to look.
Well, thank you for that. I try very hard at it. I think of myself as a craftsman,
Mm-hmm.
and I let other people judge the art.
Here's another.
This is another one. This is to be acquired by the museum, the Eric Carle Museum,
Mm-hmm.
up in Amherst, Massachusetts. They now have a piece of mine up there. And this is from the book on Don Quixote,
Oh, yeah.
called Don Quixote and the Windmills.
Mm-hmm.
It was written by Eric Kimmel, but I did the illustrations for it. There are 17 such paintings in each of these picture books.
Oh, my.
And there are 45 or 44 picture books like this.
I get tired just thinking about all the work it took to do it, and anyway. It's amazing, but that's what makes you. You're such a. This is scratchboard, right?
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is, for anyone who
scratchboard-
doesn't know, how does scratchboard work?
Well, scratchboard came about, it evolved from those drawings of the unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
They're linear. Those drawings were linear. When it
Okay.
came to scratchboard, it was the beginning of my illustration career. I didn't do the drawings as I did the unicorn, so I turned to scratchboard because working with a needle and a knife, an X-Acto knife, was like using a brush.
Hmm.
And so this is on English scraper board. The American board wasn't very useful. It would crack off. And it was mostly used for school kids. But this is called scraper board.
Hmm.
And it's produced by the British. And these are all in collections. That first one, the Jaguar, is in the collection of the New York Public Library. This one is in a collection at the University of Minnesota. And it's called Malachi's Gold. And you can see the figure of Malachi and his burro up there.
Oh, yeah, that little silhouette, that great
Yeah.
silhouette. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep trucking along here so I don't want to miss that.
Miggs, I used to do 4 of those a day.
Oh, jeez.
1 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 1 at night. I was obsessed.
I guess so, man.
Well, this is Coney Island. This is in a collection in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it was done in 1949. And there's a portrait of Thomas Dewey, who lost the presidency.
Oh, yeah.
On that side.
The poster, yeah.
It's based on a tempera painting by Carlo Crevi, I think his name is, called The Annunciation, which is in the National Gallery in London. It's 1-point perspective. And it's based upon a tempera painting. This is an egg tempera. Based upon an egg tempera painting that was done in the 15th century, 16th century.
Wow. There's another. This is egg temper too, right?
Yes, this is in the Yale Art Gallery collection.
Hmm.
This was the last easel egg tempera I would have done, 1960. I turned to acrylics after this.
So for people who don't know, egg temper, you made your own pigments. You ground up. How does that
That's
work?
right.
Briefly.
Yes.
What's the
Now they claim you could squeeze it out of a tube, but I'm very skeptical of that.
But what is it? Why is it called egg temper? Anyone who doesn't know, and I really don't know. Egg. Why are eggs involved? How is egg temper?
Well, you separate the yolk from the albumin
Mhm.
because the albumin has sulfur in it, and the albumin would, if you used it mixed with the yolk, it would eventually turn the painting kind of brown or black.
Okay.
But you use the pure yolk, mix it with water, and grind down the pigment, and add a little bit of that solution of egg yolk and water to the pigment. And it's not done on a palette like you would see romantically, you know.
Yeah.
It's done with a palette that has little holes in it. And this is the oldest known medium that lasted the longest. It began about 400 AD and lasted till about 1500.
So if you had it like with this painting, and there's
It's older than oil painting. And these paintings will last longer than oil painting. They don't move.
Oh, really? That's wild. Is it? But do you have to mix? I mean, it sounds like the making the pigments almost takes as long as the painting. I mean, you have to mix a separate one.
Yes, I spent one summer, the entire summer, grinding down pigments and putting them in mason jars.
Oh my God, you have the patience of Job. Oh my God. Okay.
No, you have to be crazy, Miggs. You have to be a little crazy.
Okay. Well, here's one. Now, this reminds me. This what I like. Well, a lot of your paintings, maybe I don't know what period they were. They're very sinewy, I guess is the word, muscular, like George Bellows kind of thing. Is that?
Yes.
Is this?
That's an interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting observation.
Hmm.
The first painter that I really enjoyed looking at was George Bellows.
Really?
And the first art book I ever bought was when I was in the Army and I was on a pass in Honolulu, and I walked into a bookshop and I saw a biography of George Bellows, and I bought it for $1.25. And I still have that book. I later met George Bellows' daughter, Jean.
Seriously? Oh.
And he made a lot of portraits of his daughter at a dinner party in Manhattan many years later. But this is an oil painting,
okay,
1948. And in this oil painting, in this picture here, there's a portrait of my father.
Is there?
Who was a great prize fight fan. Right there.
Where would he be? Is he over the cop's shoulder?
That I ever told that to.
Wow. So which one is he, over the cop's shoulder? Is he the guy in the middle?
No, he's to the left of the pole.
Okay.
And he's looking up.
Oh, so right, the brighter face looking up.
Yes, you got it right there.
Yeah. Oh, oh, that's fascinating. Wow. That is very cool. So was this a depiction? Was this an illustration for a
No, this is not an illustration.
Okay.
I first did an etching of this, and you have a copy of that etching that I sent to you.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Yep.
I did this first in 1948, and then decided that I would make a painting of it. This ended up in the National Gallery in Washington in the print collection. This etching.
Great, just like such a moment of.
And this is in the collection of the Michael Rosenfeld galleries in New York.
So is it depicting? Did you go to the boxing matches?
Yes. Seagate was a neighbor of Coney Island, and Coney Island had a place called the Velodrome. The Velodrome had boxing matches and wrestling matches and so forth, and we used to go when I was a little kid. So that's what reminded me of it. But I think the Bellows influence, I readily admit.
Yeah, well, because I saw an exhibition of his at MoMA, I guess, 5 years ago, they did a retrospect, and I was just struck by, I'd never really seen his work before or heard about it, but, and it just, again, the muscularity of the figures just reminded me of that.
He died very young.
Did he? Oh.
Yeah, I think he was in his late 30s.
Oh, so did you tell the story about meeting his daughter, you said? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. And then this,
Yeah. Well, this is in the Westport collection, the Westport School collection. This is in one of the schools in Westport. This is a painting I did in a single day. It measures 6 by 4 feet.
right.
It's an oil painting. You know, when I go like that, I go like a locomotive.
I guess, now do you use, I know my dad was an illustrator,
Yeah.
and you know, and Ed V. Bell and all these, and they used, were notorious for using their neighbors. You know, my father even used me once to pose in underwear when I was 10 years old. And he said, oh, don't worry, nobody will recognize you. Well, of course, as soon as I got to school and the ad came out in a magazine, everyone saw me in my underwear, which was humiliating for a 10-year-old. But anyway, I get off topic here. What do you use? Who do you use to, do you use neighbors
Do
for
I
figures
use
like these?
models?
Yeah, models or neighbors?
I don't use models.
No,
This,
you don't.
this is all out of my head.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I kind of photograph people in my mind, you know.
Gee.
Um,
Oh,
I'm a little bit of an idiot savant, I think.
I would say so. Well, we're back to you live here, and I just want to, we're actually just about out of time. And any last comments you want to make? Or I just can't thank you enough. Your work is just fun, and we're only seeing like 1/10 of
No,
1%.
thank you for having me on. I appreciate it very much. I could tell you that so far as the scratch boards are concerned, I've done 6,000 of them a period of 25 years.
Wow.
Half of them are in collections, public and private.
Gee.
The illustrations for picture books, like the Don Quixote, there are about 700 of those paintings. So there's a pretty large body of work involved.
Yeah, I would say I've never heard of anyone being more prolific of anybody in any.
No, Miggs, it isn't a question of being prolific. It's a question of being 96 years old and living this long.
Yeah, well, even so, you know.
Well, thank you so much.
It's been a great pleasure, Leonard, and I treasure, you know, our friendship, and this is great. Thank you for doing this.
Well, I'm very humble, and I'm honored that you did the interview. Thank you.
Thanks, Leonard. A half an hour is definitely not enough time to spend on such a long and fascinating career. To see more episodes of Artist in Residence series, check out the library's YouTube page, Westport Pub Lib, and search for the Artist in Residences playlist. Thanks, and hope to see you back at the library soon.